One of the things that you write about in the book is fail forward fast. And you did
Right.
touch on that earlier, and you kind of led us there. So I want to jump to that because the idea of failing forward fast is what you just talked about, which is
Pretty
we know
much,
we're going to
yeah.
fail. We're kind of anticipating failure. What do we do? And so you run through it instead of letting it just shut your life down or shut your business down for the day.
Right.
That's invigorating, isn't it? Because now you treat failure not as this stop sign, but just, okay, we're going to go through it regardless, so we're not going to let it stop us, so game on, let's go.
Right. In fact, we have a whole different relationship even with that word, and I think, that word is just a bad word. It's got a lot of, bad connotations or negativity associated with it. And so we don't even think about failure. We just think about how things could happen, and we have a range of scenarios. Some look better than others, but ultimately at the end of those scenarios is a vision for victory. And we know that vision is going to be it's not going to turn out exactly like we can envision it now because we can't see into the future with precision. But what we know, we can see all the things that could go right and all the things that could go wrong, and we plan for both. And so we just don't think about failure. It's not the same as like, if we fail at this, that's got a huge kind of weight to it. Like, we're bad, we screwed up, the institutions come down and hammer us. No, the institution of the SEALs gives us that top cover, and they say, go out and risk, because without risk, there's no reward. We're not going to accomplish the mission at the level that we want. So go out and fail, push yourself. Don't do stupid things, right? You still have to mitigate the risk. But, if you're not failing, then you're not trying hard enough in the SEAL teams.
What happens, Mark, and I know you've got an answer for this, so this is not a gotcha question, but what happens when you do plan for all the scenarios, what could go wrong and what could go right? And you said it a moment ago, you can't obviously predict everything, but what happens when you're out there and the scenario that maybe nobody thought of happens because it's completely out of left field? I mean, is that possible that does happen? And then how do you react to that?
Of course it happens, especially in warfare. Combat is highly unpredictable. We have this acronym. The whole first chapter in the book is called Leading in Accelerated Times. And I talk about the acronym VUCA, V-U-C-A, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And warfare is a VUCA environment. But guess what? The business world is starting to look like that too, isn't it? In the old days, industrial age, we could think of something as complicated, like a bureaucracy is complicated. You can figure it out if you're a smart person. You can solve the problem, right? You can strategically plan and execute, and it's complicated, but it's not that difficult. Nowadays, things are complex, and complex is different than complicated in that it's not linear. Like, it's acting in a holistic fashion. You don't know when that volatility is going to happen. You don't know when that black swan event's going to happen. You can't really even know how your people are going to react because of the social media and Twitterverse, and the swarm mentality of the environment now. So things are much more in a flowing state than fixed. Complicated is fixed, complex is flowing. These two, volatility and complexity, lead to an internal state of uncertainty and ambiguity. So that's where this VUCA came from. Volatility, complexity means that I'm uncertain as to which direction to go, left, right, forward, backwards. And it's ambiguous as to even which one of those is right or wrong. They all might be the right thing to do. So for the SEALs, it all comes down to mindset. The plan, mindset trumps the plan all the time. And that kind of addresses what you were talking about earlier, Ken. It's like, you get in the field, you might have like everything gamed out, you visualize success, everything, you practice all the principles, and it still goes wrong. And at this point, it's all mindset. And the mindset there is, hey, we got to solve this problem regardless. It's going to be uncomfortable. But we know in the SEALs that doubt is eliminated through action. And so what we do is we try to figure out the smallest action that we can take that'll lead us toward some solution. And then we pause and we get feedback immediately. We activate what we call the OODA loop. We observe what happened from that action. We reorient ourselves to the new reality. We take another action or make another choice or decision for another small action, and then we take that action, and then we pause, and we learn to do this very quickly. That we say that those who have a very fast OODA loop are the ones who win in a VUCA environment.
Yeah. Oh, it's so
This
true.
is a very powerful concept for business leaders to kind of lock onto and to train their minds. It's like
It really
requires awareness, right? If you just keep doing, you're going to miss the observing and the reorientation part, which is really non-doing. That's the part where you breathe. That's why mindfulness meditation is taking hold in the business world, because meditation and breath work and visualization is how we kind of reorient as the world of complexity and volatility hits us smack in the face.
Yeah. It's so powerfully true, Mark, because if we envision your favorite SEAL movie or whatever, favorite military movie, and we think of you guys in this unit, this 14-man unit, which I'm going to come back to in a second. But it's like, you guys are constantly head on a swivel, checking everything. Everybody's got their own focus.
Right.
They're looking out for each other, but they got their own focus. I'm going to come back to that momentarily. I can't wait to ask you this next question, by the way.
Yeah,
but I just
think it's all action, right? It's not all action.
No.
There's action, and then there's pause, and so instead of reacting, we're deciding, moment to moment, what's our most powerful action. It's really, really different. But once you train your brain to do that, for me as a leader, right? I've got to be on my gun. Front sight focus, the concept, I use that metaphor because when I went to training, they said, okay, you got a pistol, and your pistol has a rear sight and a front sight. You line those two up, and then you line up the front sight on the target. But then when you pull the trigger, you collapse your vision just to that front sight post. Mm-hmm. So it's like your micro goal, I'm not looking at the target, but the target is out there in my broad vision. I can still see it. But if I try to look at the target and pull the trigger, everyone who's gone shooting knows that you're going to miss the target practically every time. Yeah. So you just focus on that front sight, and that's like your immediate obstacle or your immediate line of sight is on that target. So as a SEAL leader, I would be on my gun, and my front sight was the enemy in front of me. But if I got sucked into just firing my weapon at the enemy, like my teammates were, then I would lose the perspective of what's going on around me. I would lose the perspective of what help my teammates needed, if we need to move position, if I need to call in air support, if someone got wounded, I need to have the medic go get them. There's so many other things as a leader that you need to keep scanning the horizon for, but then you got to go really, really focused and deep to the targets that are appropriate for you.
Yeah, I'm taking notes here, folks. It's the SEALs win when there's communication after observation, right? It's like, or it's a cyclical thing. I'm just learning from you. You know what I mean? It's like you guys are, observation, communication is really where you win your battles. All right, so I'm going to go back into principle 5, which is forge mental toughness. We've been all around this, Mark, and I love this, but I want to go back to a couple times you have painted a picture for us of a 14-man unit, okay? And while they all have their own unique role in the mission, you also mentioned that they're all looking out for each other too, and you just took us to that front sight focus. Here's one of the things you write on in the book: control your attention. Boy, that's big for the leader, isn't it? And for the individual team. Control your attention, because if you get focused on something you're not supposed to, people die in your world.
Correct. And that's a skill. So one of the things I wanted to bring out in the book was that these internal skills can be trained. They need to be trained. They become literally a daily practice for us. The art of attention control is essentially learning how to direct your mind at the right target/thought at the right time for the right reason. So in that regard, you need to step away from your obsessive compulsive thinking or your loops. A lot of those loops are fear, what I call fear loops. And you need to be able to step away from that and connect to like a deeper, higher perspective within your own mind, where you're watching your own thoughts constantly. And you're watching the thoughts that are coming in from your teammates or from the environment. And that includes your emotional states, because emotions are just an energetic thought pattern. And so we learn to control our attention and to redirect it from things that are distracting us or thoughts that might be negative. So the roadside bomb goes off. It's going to cause an immediate fight or flight response. The SEAL will look at that and see it arising in his body-mind system and say, okay, got that. It's coming. I can interdict this through deep breathing. So control my breath, calm down. Now, okay, I'm calming down. Now, what's the one thing I need to do right now? And all of a sudden, that drowns out all the clutter, and I control my attention to shift on the one thing I need to do right now. It might be taking care of a teammate who got hit. It might be, getting off the road. It might be taking cover. What's that one thing? Okay, done. Let's do that. And then I maintain my mental state through that breath control and by always asking myself, what's the one thing I need to do right now to move my team, get my team back on track and move toward victory.